What's good, y'all? I've got some sick buffs from my boy Cloyster. Before I get into them, though, I have a quick disclaimer for any new viewers who are here to make sure that you look in the description down below. There is a link to the Google Sheet that I'm sharing on screen right now, and you can look at all 600 plus move buffs and changes. If you look on screen, you can see these little tabs here on the bottom of the Google Sheet. Click search all moves here. I've got a giant master list of every single move buff and change. I've reworked pretty much every single move in the game, and those are all critical to understand how all the Pokemon are going to function now. It's a big deal. So yeah, I got tons of new priority moves, drink media type moves, close combat, recoil, multi-hit stuff, crit moves, all type, tons of new status moves and utility moves. It's definitely worth checking out. I would take away pretty much everything you think you know about how most moves used to work, and just check out what they do now in the description down below. With that being said, though, Cloyster has some sick buffs. First off, the water steel typing makes a lot of sense. At the very least, it makes just as much sense as water ice did. I don't think anything about Cloyster implies ice. It's one of those Gen 1 moments. I'm pretty sure they just needed more ice types with the decks, and so they made him water ice, which is like, sure. And I don't even think anything about him implies he lives in cold water either. I still kept the ice moves just for for soul reasons, but nothing about him is really ice type at all. I think maybe a couple of the deck entries vaguely talk about him living in cold water, but that's like 20 years later. Yeah, it's just harsh tidal currents. Nothing about cold water though, even. So I don't know. Ice type doesn't make a lot of sense. Steel typing, however, makes plenty of sense. He's literally like his whole thing. I forget what the word for it is. He's like a turret armored type guy, right? He's like a. There's a word for it. I don't know what the word is, but yeah, he's very clearly based on like some type of military artillery, right? Like the shape of the shell, the spikes everywhere. So water steel, not only does that make a lot more sense, it's also a lot better defensively. Not that water ice is bad anymore, because ice does actually have resistances in his hack, but water steel is still obviously a superior defensive typing overall. Not superior objectively, but it has more resistances at the very least. So that's awesome for Cloyster. So he can fulfill a much more defensive role. He also has a lot more HP and special defense now. He's no longer a mixed attacker. I don't really see him using special attacks that much anyways. He does have really good physical attack. Not really good, but really good physical attacking moves because of what he is with all the spikes and whatnot. So Technician in this hack is pretty heavily buffed, just in the nature that there are tons of new Technician boosted moves. Hence why I gave it over Skill Link, because Skill Link would be, not only would I have to move these multi-hit moves a lot later, like at least level 40 would be the earliest, which is like mid Ulu Island, early Ulu Island, which is kind of boring to get it that late. Like basically Skill Link is useless, right? And the other good thing about Technician is that other moves are boosted besides the multi-hit moves. So you still have all these very powerful multi-hit moves, which are in fact actually stronger with Technician than you are with Skill Link. They're just less consistent. You have tons of other options with Technician. So you have Clamp and Vice Grip are both 60 base power moves that trap the opponent for 6 turns, and they're 100% accurate, so they're very, very good for dealing residual damage. You can use those in conjunction with Baneful Bunker, and you can, stall the opponent with like toxic, or rather poison damage and, leftovers. You also have you get Rehydrate at level 22, which is water type recover, and then you get Fortify upon evolution into Cloyster, which is steel type recover. So you basically have 2 chances to teach a reliable recovery move to your Cloyster. Keep in mind you don't have access to an infinite move your like you do in most games. You don't get it until the end of the game, which is part of the balancing of the ROM hack. It's kind of like it adds more skill. You have to be careful with what moves you teach and which ones you don't. Keep in mind that you do have all of these infinitely reteachable TMs and tutor options, though. Speaking of, a lot of these are really great on Cloyster. In terms of Technician boosted moves, you have Rock Tomb, which is 90 base power with Technician. You have First Impression, which is 135 base power with Technician. That's a very widely distributed move in this hack. You might think it's a bit weird on Cloyster. It's really fitting on a lot of other Pokemon because it's a very general attack. Like it can fit really any physical attacker for the most part, unless they're like extremely slow, like Avalugg or something. But you might argue it doesn't fit Cloyster, but I think it's cool enough or fitting enough to justify with Technician. Of course, if it didn't have Technician, I might not have given it, honestly. But it's fine. Yeah, that's it for Technician boosted TMs and tutor moves. But I mean, technically, like Water Pulse is, but that's not strong. And Icy Wind and stuff, but that doesn't matter. Barb Barrage is 90 base power overall and will always poison. You have Priority, Aqua Jet, and Ice Shard. Obviously, Aqua Jet being Stab. And then you have moves like, obviously, Icicle Spear, Rock Blast, and Pin Missile, which are all coverage moves. And then you have Spike Cannon, which is Steel-type Stab. So that's great for Technician on Cloyster. And then you have a couple other little options. The most important ones, however, are Triple Cannonade and Surging Strikes. Triple Cannonade is a Steel-type version of Surging Strikes. And both of those are very, very powerful with, I believe, about 188 base power with Technician. So those are great. The only drawback being that they have they have a 10% chance to miss, which is a pretty big deal in a ROM hack where it's balanced for Nuzlockes and hardcore Nuzlockers. However, you're so bulky that missing isn't as big of a deal. You still get Shell Smash. It is a late game option. It's not like the best thing in the world, but you know, Shell Smash plus Technician plus triple candidate and Surging Strikes and stuff is pretty crazy, obviously. Especially because that does bypass stuff like Focus Sash and Sturdy and all these other abilities and items that will prevent you from setting up. You also resist the very common First Impression, which is another way that I'll be dealing with setup sweepers. And your great physical, you know, your incredible physical base defense will mean that even at -1 defense, you're swallowing First Impression for sure. You can run great defensive sets on Cloyster and offensive sets, or both. You know, Assault Vest for certain boss fights could be very useful. Spiky Shield is useful. Another thing I want to point out is Bulletproof. I'm surprised I haven't talked about that yet, but Bulletproof is incredible in this hack and just in general because of the fact that you have infinite usability capsules. You only ever need to use Bulletproof when it's useful. So these attacks are all very common, right? Most Pokemon, like a lot of Pokemon now, get Aura Sphere via TM, you know, Energy Ball via TM, a lot more than you would think. So tons of Pokemon get these moves for coverage and for stab. And even if you resist moves, for example, you resist stuff like actually, you don't resist any of these moves. But Bug Bomber is only when you resist, and Triple Candidate. Those are the only moves up here you resist. And then technically like Rock Blast and stuff. But the most common ones, you know, Bug Bomber. These are all very common moves, honestly. The least common ones on the AI will be stuff like Scum Shot and Magnetic Burst because the AI can't, and Sludge Shot because the AI can't abuse priority moves that well. Also, Ice Ball is never going to show up because it's shit, and I can't change it, sadly. But otherwise, the rest of them are all like good, reliable, consistent attacks that are going to show up very often. You know, Mud Bomb being 110 base power, Zap Cannon, and Rock Wrecker functioning like Draco Meteor type moves. So all these moves are really common, and being completely immune to them is beautiful on a Water Steel type, especially moves like Aura Sphere and Energy Ball and Shadow Ball, because despite the fact that your special defense is actually good, now, like, you actually have a useful split F stat. It's not like the greatest thing in the world. You know, you're going to need investment or an Assault Vest to take special hits reliably. It's just now you can actually take them with investment versus before Cloyster absolutely could not. And of course, you don't need any physical defense investment. Although, in this ROM hack, you only ever need to use the EVs when you need them because you have access to infinite EV training items. You can easily run a max HP, max defense set, and if your Cloyster's only role in that boss fight is to take a physical hit and kill something, and that's it, then all you need is max HP and max defense, or, you know, as much attack EVs as you need to kill whatever's in front of you. So that's a really good thing for Cloyster and any Pokemon in that matter, for that matter. Overall, though, he's got great coverage moves, great Technician boosted options, great utility moves. Bulletproof is a great ability with that infinite usability capsule, so you just use it when you need it. Otherwise, you're using Technician for the power boost, of course. However, a lot of your good moves are also not even Technician boosted anyways. Like Gyro Ball is very nice, and you know, even just consistent things like Smart Strike and Iron Head for consistent damage, because Spike Cannon does have a bit of variability. However, at worst, Spike Cannon is the same base power as Smart Strike with Technician. Spike Cannon hitting twice with 75 base power, Smart Strike is 75, so I would say Spike Cannon is almost always your best steel type stab option until you get Triple Candidate at 50, which is obviously incredible. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. He's just got great coverage moves. You can fulfill a great defensive role and a good offensive role, like always. He's no longer just funny Shell Smash button. He's a great Pokemon from start to finish. A lot of Pokemon that were previously known for doing one thing can do a lot more things. Literally every Pokemon has like a million things it can do now. Especially because you're fighting against AI, you can really take advantage of all the move options that you get and all the abilities that you get. For example, every Pokemon has 2 usable abilities, and yeah, I'm kind of going up in circles, but it's a lot better than the first time I recorded this damn video, you know, 6 months ago or whatever. This video was like 25 minutes long. I think it was one of the first videos I uploaded. So yeah, we're coming full circle, I guess. I am re-uploading and re-recording older guys just to update them a little bit more. I will say Rapid Spin is also useful. Not because you're removing hazards. Hazards are pretty much not a factor in game. The only time Rapid Spin will be useful is versus like Guzma and Plumeria mostly, because they do use hazards, but like T-Spikes and Webs. But otherwise, Rapid Spin is good because it gives you a +2 speed boost now. You also get Rock Polish, which just gives you +2 speed and +1 accuracy, which works great in conjunction with Technician and Triple Candidate and Surging Strikes because you don't get Shell Smash until 60. And Shell Smash doesn't even give you that accuracy boost. Obviously, missing, like I said earlier, is not a big deal on Cloyster, versus on a frailer Pokemon, it is a big deal. So you can actually risk a miss for certain fights for Cloyster, but it's still not optimal. Overall, though, he's the GOAT. Cloyster's super sick. I'm really happy with these buffs and changes for him. Shelter, totally great until level 29 from when you catch him or fish him up or whatever. You know, he's just a bulky pure water type with good Technician boosted options, and Sturdy for certain boss fights is useful. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Again, there's a couple other options here I'm not even covering, like Withdraw, that gives you +1 defenses, Finishing Blow, that gives you +3 attack if he knocks something out with it, and is Technician boosted. Scary Face drops attack and speed. You know, all types of really useful. Parting Shot is huge. I don't know why I didn't mention that yet. So yeah, tons of really good options that I don't have time to cover. Swords Dance is decent with like Arco Jet and stuff. So yeah, I appreciate you listening. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff, and I'll be back for more coming up. Peace.